the team that was often called the ass wipes, the team that was often called the toilet managers of the NFL, or as most often called them, and what I also like to call them, the Skidmarks of the NFL. You know, skid marks, you know, the thing that you see on your underwear, that brown piece of like wipe that you see when you forget to wipe your ass with toilet paper. Yes, the skid marks of the NFL, and that is the Cleveland Browns. But when you actually look at the Cleveland Browns going to 2021, it certainly didn't look that way. They didn't certainly look like the skid marks in 2020, because they went 10-6. They got into the playoffs for the first time since 2002. You know, there were some hopeful things under new head coach Kevin Stefanski, especially when they dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, granted, it was against the washed-ass Big Ben Roethlisberger, but still, that defense played well. Baker Mayfield, you know, he did what he could on offense. And then you got to the game against Kansas City in the next round. You had an opportunity to close the gap, pull off an upset, especially when, you know, Patrick Mahomes went down with a concussion. But Kevin Stefanski, you know, made some really conservative choices in that game, and it allowed the Chiefs to rally in that game with their backup quarterback and pull away to go on to the next round. But, you know, despite what happened in that game, you know, for Browns fans, you know, you either had some encouragement for next season, or for everyone else, you know, there may have been a little bit of, you know, realism. You know, you have to keep a little bit of expectations in check. So going in that offseason, you know, they did a pretty solid job, both in free agency and the draft. It was mainly defensive work. In free agency, you know, you added the likes of Jadeveon Clowney and Malik Jackson, and then the draft is where they really hit home. You added corner Greg Newsome, and then you add linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And, you know, personally looking at them, they both look poised to be immediate contributors to the defense, especially as the season wore on. You know, they don't look like it right away, but, you know, as they improve upon in the next couple, in probably year 2, let's see how they look. Maybe they could be a good foundational piece for that defense. So you have old and new faces coming into the building, like Kevin Stefanski and all those pieces I just mentioned. And Baker Mayfield's coming in for his 4th year. They picked up his 5th year option. So for Browns fans, you know, you have a little bit of hope, but, you know, obviously expectations were clearly in check. So, you know, you go to Kansas City, rematch of the AFC divisional right away. You know, you look the part. You know, the offense is rolling, the defense putting Patrick Mahomes in check. You know, they look poised to continue their success from the postseason for like 30 minutes, for like 30 minutes of the regular season. So yeah, that was pretty much all that Cleveland had to smile about for 2021, because, well, the second half came and pretty much Kevin Stefanski repeated the same mistakes that he did in the divisional. Conservative, relied too much on Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and when it came to nut-busting time, when they lost that lead to Kansas City, Baker Mayfield failed to come in the clutch, threw an interception, and the Browns lose again to Kansas City. But then, when you go on to the next week, you come back home for your opener against the Houston Texans. Yeah, as if losing in the same place that you nearly won in the playoffs, as if that wasn't bad enough. Yeah, then your starting quarterback gets hurt and then continues to play hurt throughout the season, because in that week 2 game against the Houston Texans, Baker Mayfield pretty much tears his left shoulder, and for whatever reason, he continues to play through that left shoulder injury as the season wore on, and as a result, it affected the entire offense. You know, Jarvis Landry, as a result, looked awful for much of the season, but then even then, the entire offense was already in a shamble throughout 2021, and pretty much resembled what 2019 looked like. The only consistent thing about the offense was Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and hell, even the reserves looked better than the entire offense. So whether Hunt or Nick Chubb were dealing with either injuries or COVID-19. The reserves like Dearness Johnson stepped up big. Like they did pretty well in relief of either one of those two. The defense also faced some of the inconsistencies of their own, but a unit led by Myles Garrett, Mac Wilson, Greg Newsome, solid performances, especially by Myles Garrett. He's clearly the team MVP of the season, but the inconsistencies, they were out of sync pretty much all season long. It cost them some very winnable games. The Browns, had they actually gotten some consistency, especially from Baker Mayfield, and Kevin Stefanski didn't play scared for a lot of the games, they could have been they could have been teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers twice. They had 2 opportunities to beat the Steelers and they pretty much botched it. They could have been the Raiders, but unfortunately, obviously COVID sucks and they got hit by it hard late in the season. But yeah, it was a winnable game and they blew it. And even against the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers was getting held in check by that Browns defense and Myles Garrett, and Nick Chubb was going ham on that Packers run defense, and yet they couldn't close the gap, and as a result, they were eliminated from the postseason yet again. And not only that, they were embarrassed by the likes of the Arizona Cardinals and the New England Patriots, and that was coming off big wins too. So overall, for as much as I can blame Baker Mayfield and that shoulder injury hampering the entire offense all season long, Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, has as much to blame for not doing anything to shut down Baker Mayfield, just out of safety. Why, when Baker Mayfield was clearly hurt, and who knows, maybe Baker Mayfield wanted to continue to play and Kevin Stefanski respected his wishes. You clearly saw Baker Mayfield struggling, and I think he aggravated his injury. What was it, at that game against the Lions where he got hit hard on the turf? Why didn't, from that point on, when he clearly saw that Baker Mayfield was hurt, he's clearly struggling with to play through that injury, why didn't Kevin Stefanski, why didn't that front office or ownership, that matter, take a stand, force matters into their own hands, and I don't know, shut down Baker Mayfield out of safety. Case Keenum, sure, he's not the greatest of answers, but he's not the greatest of backup quarterbacks. But you knew that the season was well and done with, considering that you let Baker Mayfield ride it out that long. Just let him play out the season. Instead of just letting your quarterback miserably ride it out. And it wasn't until the pointless Week 18 game where Baker Mayfield is gonna get surgery. Bruh. So the Browns finished 8-9, very disappointing season, and yeah, they did look like the Skidmarks again. They really did. One week they looked atrocious. Even when they did win games, they looked really atrocious. The offense couldn't do jack shit. Most of the time they had to win the games by their kicker. Chase McDonald. I don't know what his name is. It's the kicker that starts with Chase. But anyway, very disappointing season for the Cleveland Browns. Did they look like the Skidmarks of the past? Had some resemblance of it, yes, but not total Skidmarks territory. Not like the 0-16 Cleveland Skidmarks of the 2017. So the Browns have a lot of work to do in the offseason. They have some things to decide on before they revert to full Skidmarks yet again. So they got to avoid that territory. So going to the offseason, they have some money to spend, around $25 million to be exact. Some of their key free agents to consider for the Browns are Jadeveon Clowney, David Njoku, Malik Jackson, Anthony Walker, and Ronnie Harrison. They're currently slated to draft at number 13, so they're in that mid-range. So the first thing that they got to decide to do is get some reliable wide receivers. And sure, they traded for Amari Cooper, but you got to get more than just that. Amari Cooper, yes, he flashes some great talent, but sometimes he can sometimes be not as reliable as well, especially, considering that Baker Mayfield is not it is not as reliable of a quarterback as Dak Prescott is, and especially considering that Mayfield is very more inconsistent than Prescott. Also considering the fact that Jarvis Landry is given the Browns' blessing to seek a trade elsewhere. Yeah, you need wide receivers all around. So for the Browns, they got to build depth at the wide receivers position, get a wide receiver 2 opposite of Amari Cooper. You could do that in the draft pretty much. The free agent market is kind of drying up at the moment, but you gotta build up this wide receiver room, because if Baker Mayfield wants to prove he was worth a damn in his 5th and final year for the Browns, then you got to build up that wide receiver room. You got to find a defensive lineman opposite Myles Garrett. It definitely helps the Browns to give him a running mate. Give Garrett someone to get the shoulder load off of him a little bit. I think it helped a little when they picked up Jadeveon Clowney. Hopefully, for the Browns, they re-sign him. So it helps out Myles Garrett, and maybe you could get another interior defensive lineman, and on the inside to shut down the run and get at the quarterback. So they have to find a defensive lineman opposite Myles Garrett. So for Cleveland, they are poised to go deeper with Stefanski. He seemed to look like the right coach for the team to finally not just to tap into Baker Mayfield's skill set, but institute a culture change. But clearly 2021 messed all that up with clearly his shadiness of the quarterback's injury, and he didn't do anything until literally the last week of the season to time for you to get surgery. Yeah. How do you not address that sooner? Then the Browns wouldn't have gone nearly full Skidmarks mode. So injury or not, and Mayfield looks like the quarterback that he was in 2019 and 2021. The Browns are going to look like another toilet flush in 2022. And for better or worse, they're going to look like a skid mark on the rim of yet another underwear on the toilet.